Hello, welcome everybody. 2 minutes past 2. I think we'll kick off. Welcome to Sprint 2. It's our second sprint of the year. It's going to run from today till the 28th of July, and today is all about reminding ourselves of some of the progress we've already made, and there has been some really good progress. Looking at the priorities for this sprint and making sure that we've got everything in our armory that we can possibly have to try and set us up for success. So it's a really brilliant 10 weeks. So today's agenda, this is where we see how seamless Chris and I and Holly and I are between us as to how quickly this all works. It's brilliant. Today's agenda, obviously, we've kind of started it. We'll do a bit of introductions. We'll look at the strategy. We've got workstream teams to give some updates. We'll also give some updates on the bits that we're looking at. And also, we're just a bit of a reminder, if there's some new people on the call today, thank you so much for joining us. Really keen to get you involved. If you're, as we go through, thinking, well, I don't know how I get involved, we're here at hello@FutureDotNow, and we would love to hear your thoughts afterwards about where you might want to get involved. Those of you that at the summit will know we are now a much smaller team than we were. That's mainly because Paul has left us and gone back to Accenture after 5 years. But, you know, hey ho, that was a good secondment. So on the call today, we've got me, you've got Holly, it's now gone, you've got Holly, you've got Angie, who's our business manager, and Chris, who's our comms and campaigns manager. And I'm really delighted to be able to tell you that we will have 2 new colleagues joining us from memory, I think it's the 22nd of June. I'm now looking to see it. Yeah, I'm seeing nods from the team. On the 22nd of June, they're both joining on the same day. Helen Embleton is joining us, and she's going to be leading on our program management all around the delivery plan. And I'm also delighted that Tega is going to be joining us. And Tega is on the call today, and she's going to be leading on marketing and membership going forward. So really, really excited about bringing in the some new team members and what the additional capacity that's going to give us. So that's really exciting. So look, as we're going through, feel free to put any questions, any comments in the chat. And we'll also try and go through relatively quickly, so we've got a little bit of time at the end for questions. Chris, go and put that slide up that you, or it's Holly, actually, you're driving the slide. The one that just flashed up a little bit early. Just wanted to remind you all, start off with where we've been, the summit. Well, my summit day did not start off well, as some of you will know who was there because of the train strike, but my goodness, what a brilliant day. We had over 150 leaders at the Guildhall. We had loads of new faces, but most importantly, we had huge amounts of energy and engagement. You may have seen the summary of the from the summit has been shared back end of last week. If you haven't got your copy, check your junk emails. I can't believe it would have gone into junk, you know, being such high quality content. But if it is, you know, do try and find it. If you can't find it, it's also on our website. And of course, you've all seen that wonderful visual representation of the day. But look, there were 5 key themes. I'll mention them, but I think the key message was, you know, we are not as a country going to unlock the benefits of AI, automation, or whatever other parts of digital transformation we might aspire towards as a nation unless we fix our essential digital skills foundations. And that was the kind of the headline message coming through on 5 key themes. So these skills are the bedrock of a future fit workforce. Digital confidence directly affects employability and economic outcomes. And I don't know if any of you've seen the content over the weekend on the first stage findings from the Milburn report, but, you know, actually for young people, this is such a critical topic. I think we've got some really good content now coming through from that work that Julie Hawker shared that we worked on together down in the Southwest. You know, the other themes, you know, look, AI, it's going to widen the divide unless the foundations are fixed first. You know, it's both a learning and a leadership challenge. It's not just about, you know, giving people content. It's also about how leaders represent the opportunities to people, and also the humility that we can come to it as leaders ourselves, recognizing that, you know, we don't have the AI essentials necessarily for sure at the moment because so much of this is coming. And then the final one, which is my final, my favorite theme that came through, which was all about, look, this is possible. Solutions exist, and it's collaboration that makes them super scalable. And that's all about us today. And that's all about these sprints and how we work together. So one brilliant day at the Guildhall, and I'm delighted they've said we can go back next year. So that's really, really exciting. Okay, onwards. So you know this, we have 2 key themes for this year, and it's all about scale. So we want to engage more businesses through the sectors and through the key communities, and we absolutely want to make it much easier for organisations to act, whilst also continuing to solve those systemic issues, the barriers that are affecting all of us, those things that if we get them right, everybody benefits. And I'm delighted we've got work streams tackling them. So one more slide from me, I think. This is probably the most important slide. This is our summation of what we know now, and thank you to all the workstream leads that have helped us pull this together. This is our summation of what good will look like by the end of Sprint 2. And of course, each work stream will be refining this over the first few weeks of this sprint. Please don't think that we're at the start of a sprint and everybody's behind. Nobody's behind. We're all working out exactly what these 10 weeks are going to look like. But these are the things that you have told us that you are gunning for in this sprint. And they are also the things that we have said as FutureDotNow we are gunning for in this sprint. So under engaging more businesses, there are 4 key things. We want to get awareness and action growing across the sectors. We certainly want to get a further 2 sectors live and with action plans. And as I said, Helen Embleton's joining as our new strategic project manager on the 22nd of June, and that's going to give that a really important boost. We want to see significant movement on charter signatories and memberships, and obviously the 4 sectors that are live with action plans, and we're going to be hearing from them in a minute. They're a key route to that. And this isn't about charter signatories for signatory's sake. It's about using it as a measure to be able to show the level of engagement in different sectors. We want to make sure that the work that we've done with the employability work and also the work with young people is that the stakeholders that are already working with young people, that they've got information on essential digital skills and can understand its relevance to what they are doing, and that they can bring that into their work. That feels like quite a briefing job to do, but there's also other things. So for example, we've been working with BCS who are currently leading the education curriculum review with DFE, so they're already starting to bring some of that in, but of course that curriculum review won't take effect till 2030. Then the other piece is about young people. That's also about those that are entering the workforce, and also, you know, the wider job market. Obviously, the Work Ready report that we've launched, we're launching it actually this week, but you've all had a sneaky peek at it. We're going to be using that to campaign with key audiences, particularly around the NEETs and employability part of that story. And the brilliant thing is we're not only publishing the report that we will get out this week, but also we're going to have a toolkit that's going to be all about how others can use those findings to really replicate that at scale. And I think that's really important here. And then under making action easier, three key things. We'll talk more about these as we go through. So we want to get that organisational maturity framework developed further. Our ultimate goal is to get that so organisations are using it to benchmark their position, but also in a way that they're then willing to share some of that information so we can start to get a measure of what the country looks like. I mean, that would be really exciting if we can get there. I mean, that's the long game for sure. We want to get that existing bank of resources, all of these reports that we've been working on for the last couple of years, really reviewed and prioritised to help create curated learning journeys for organisations against those maturity stages. And I'm hoping that Tega doesn't leave the call thinking I don't want to take the job, because she's going to be absolutely front and centre of leading that work. And I have to say, she blew us away with some of her ideas at interview, so I can't tell you how exciting I am about having Tega join us. And then finally, the final one that sits there is the accreditation and badging work stream. We've talked about that. Actually there's 4 in here. We've joined one of them together. We've got the accreditation and badging work stream, which is going to be new. That's building on learning from the employability pilot and responding to the fact that we know that organisations want to know how to accredit learners and also to motivate them. And then the final one is the Future Fit framework, which obviously has had massive success. Well done, everybody, in terms of getting DSIT ownership, but they've only announced that in a document. We haven't actually seen what that really starts to look like. So there's quite a bit of work there to do to make sure we continue to be a positive force on that. But also that what they're owning, or what they're going to own, is the current framework and what that looks like. We've obviously done work over the last year on how do you bring AI into the framework, and we've also got ideas about how we get more organisations to really start to lean into that framework as something that everybody sees as the baseline. So those are some of the things that we already know are on our stack for Sprint 2. Please don't leave now, because we need you all to play your part in terms of making this happen. And the final thing, which is a really important bit, just at the bottom of that slide, I don't want any of you to miss it. Let's not forget that small and medium enterprises are the biggest employers in this country. There are, millions of them, and they are a really important audience. So in everything that we're doing, we want to make sure that we're just asking ourselves, what's the SME lens on this? What's the SME lens on that? So we keep them front of mind, and we're not just thinking about larger organisations. So that's it. That's Sprint 2. I'm going to hand over to Holly, and she's going to talk through some more of the detail. Holly, actually, what she's really going to do is she's going to talk about how proud she is about this report, and then she's going to talk about the detail. Go, Holly.
That's true. So Liz gave a little tee up there, and I know Julie's put it in the chat as well. So 4 months of hard work has now concluded. We've been really overjoyed with some of the results that have come out of it. We set ourselves a target of having 20% of participants in this course into employment, and actually we've achieved 26, which, when you compare to the control group of only 14%, that's a significant increase. Learners are coming through this training, getting support to build essential digital and AI skills, and it's enabling them to secure employment. They're twice as likely to secure employment. They're securing employment quicker. And there's been some other really interesting things that have come out of the learning and out of this proof of concept. Things like bringing in AI has created this spark of curiosity for learners. So where it could be seen as something potentially quite intimidating or something that people don't feel comfortable with, actually, when they were helped to start to be able to experiment and have a go with it, it created quite a transformation in our learners. So the project itself has concluded. The report will be coming out on Thursday. I think one of the team's going to pop a link in the chat, which will allow you to register for first sight of that once it gets published. And then the follow-up work that will continue over the summer is taking the learnings, and lots of this work's already been done, but we are going to do some further work just to refine it and make sure that the insights we've gained from this program can really be highly usable to people, because this is all about how can others replicate this. So if you're running an employability program in your region, if you're involved in the commissioning of it or in the delivery of it, actually how can you take some of the learnings and recommendations from this report and then implement it into your program? Because the way we approached this was all about how do you enhance existing rather than having to create new, because we know that people are time poor, limited budgets. So it was all about making effective targeted tweaks to what was already out there. So lots of good stuff, and I know Julie is chomping at the bit to get out there and start talking about it. In fact, I think she already is. Okay, thanks, Thomas. Okay, so engaging more businesses. Liz mentioned this, that our priority this year is all about sector, as we find that is a route to scale. Employers have a captive audience in their workforce, but they also have highly effective routes into supply chain and other partners in industry. So this is a route to get to people at scale. Our aspiration is that every sector has an action plan. What you can see on the slide, lots of you will be familiar with this. This is our new look heat map. This takes the latest data from Lloyds Bank, who up until now have done that public service and given us a readout on the level of skills by sector in the country. The big number is the percentage of people in this sector who have all essential digital skills for work today. The smaller number is what that figure looked like last year. A big green arrow is good. It means it's getting better. Obviously, a big red arrow going down means it's getting worse. What we have at the moment is the top 4 sectors are live, and shortly we're going to hear updates from each of those teams who are leading the charge in their sectors. But what we also have is 9 sectors at the bottom of this grid who don't yet have any sector leadership. What we ask of our leadership teams is to really do their best to make this skills gap a recognised priority across their sector. We know from the data that this gap cuts across every sector. It impacts every demographic, every region, and shows up in all sorts of ways in people's businesses, whether that's sluggish productivity, whether it's difficulty filling higher end talent gaps, whether it's cybersecurity issues. It may well show up in all sorts of different ways, but that gap is going to be there in your organisation, and we need businesses to be championing this. So champion it as a priority. Help us to show that commitment through charter signatories and membership growth. The membership gives people tools to help them to close the gap. Help to elevate this coalition as a means of being that partner in closing the gap and dealing with that upskilling. But also importantly, demonstrate what these organisations as leaders in their own right are doing to plug the gap in their own organisation, because it's no good saying, right, you lot over there have to go and do all of this good stuff. Actually, we know that these businesses in these leadership roles are doing it within their own team. So actually sharing what works. Also coming soon is getting all of this content reflected onto our website, and Chris and our design partners are working hard to pull that together, and that will be coming out over the next few weeks. So that's the kind of headline on the sectors. Before I'm going to come to our live sector teams, I just wanted to just give you the headlines around how we're starting to approach the 9 sectors that aren't yet active. So one of the things we did at the end of Sprint Workshop at Sprint 1, where many of you on this call were there, is we shared with you our best practice guide that was based on the work that our live sectors had done. You know, what does it take to stand up a sector? What does it mean? You know, what's working well? What do you need? And we also got some input from you around what was right about it, how could we improve it, you know, where did we still have questions, and what we heard, what you told us, was that actually there were some steps that we could start to progress. Things like, when you have a sector, we know there's a lot within a sector. Actually, how do you start to segment that into smaller groups within a sector that makes it potentially more manageable? But also it's a way of engaging people within that sector in a bit of a conversation before asking them to commit. So what you'll see when we share this pack is we've done a bit of early work around the segmentation. We've also stepped through each of the stages and looked at what resources would be helpful to support sector leaders as they go and do this outreach. And one of the jobs that Helen's going to do is start to, you know, build that out in more detail and really make sure that we're understanding what is most helpful for our sprint leaders. In terms of other progress since the end of the sprint, good news, Tech UK have now come on board, so we will be standing up the technology sector. 73% of people in tech don't have these skills. It's often one of those sectors that people think, surely there's not a gap there. But there is. It's gone from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4. So that will be we'll see movement this sprint in technology. And we've also started conversation with the City of London around financial services. Obviously, financial and professional services, big focus area for the city. And we have partners over at the Financial Services Skills Commission. So and you'll see from the data that we already have a number of charter signatories. We've got Nationwide as a member. So we've already got some good organisations involved in this work. So actually that's about how do we stand up the sector. This is what you'll see in the back. So at the back for each of the sectors, you'll see what's the gap, what's the proposed segmentation, and I suspect there's some in there that's right. There's probably a lot in there that isn't, because we're not the sector experts. You guys in your sectors know your sectors best, but it's to start the conversation. And then we've listed out actually who has signed a charter, because sometimes it's quite hard to know who do you even tackle because you don't know who's signed it and who hasn't. So have a look at your sector, see if you've signed it. If you haven't, think about signing it, and also have a think about whether this might be something you'd want to come alongside and do some work with us on. And once Helen gets into role, this is something that she will be starting to put some real effort behind. So that's what we're pressing on with the 9 sectors. But let's now hear from the sectors that are live. Now we're going to go around in a loop. We're going to start with education, then we're going to come to construction, then health and care, which the data tags as medical, and then government. So John and Cheryl, I can see you. I think John's probably on the call as well. I can't see his face. Why don't I hand over to the two of you to lead us through education?
John's actually on leave this week, so
he's on leave. Well, it's over to you then, Cheryl.
It's over to me. I think Paul's also on the call out if Paul wants to jump in.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Paul. You're right. Paul is on the call.
One of the things we've been doing kind of over the past couple of months is looking at how we can grow the group that we've got. So we have a group with other organisations. So it's not just ALP and Gateway, although we're kind of the core leads. We wanted to bring other team members in. We've got more on board now as well since that slide, Holly. So we do have an update on that. But we have because one of the things that we've realised is we can't do it all ourselves. There's a lot of different when we come on. Is it on that one? Yeah. I've got a different version of the slide. Anyway, I'm just
sorry. I just realised this is called rapidly running into a call and preparing slides in the run-up. You're right. I've added. You've got a couple of extra additions, haven't you?
That's okay. So yeah. So we've got we're gradually growing our group. So we've got other sort of awarding bodies on board. So we've got City and Guilds, NCFA, NCC Education. We've got UVAC, so we can try and tap into the HE market, which is Koreans doing really, really good with that. And we've also brought UFI on board for kind of that vocational education, and we've got the Federation of Awarding Bodies. So that group is really growing, and it's really sort of proven valuable to us as we try to roll this out within the different sectors, because although ourselves and Gateway work predominantly in FA, we need other partners to come in and help us to tap into sort of secondary schools, early years, higher education, as I said. So we've really been concentrating on growing that group, which is going really, really well. We meet I would say around about every 6 weeks and give everybody else actions as well, which is really nice. We are also through the new version of the slides, kind of at the last meeting, we had a bit of a chat about, we saw who signed so that's really, really useful to see, Holly, where we've got a list of who has actually signed the charter through the education sector, so we can look at, well, who hasn't, so we can really sort of pinpoint those. So we've got some prospects, we've got 5 prospects that we've identified that would be really, really good to approach, and we've been looking at how we can tap into some of the regional networks and things like that to kind of spread the message. The other thing that we've done is case studies. So we produced our first case study. So that was one of our commitments this year, that we would publish some case studies. So it's Gateway has worked with Barnsley College to produce that. So hopefully, it might be worth sharing with the group. But just looking at sort of how Barnsley College are approaching the digital tech world. So we're going to be doing some more of those this year as well as obviously talking at meetings and conferences and encouraging sort of more charter signatories. I think that's kind of where we're up to, unless Paul wants to jump in with anything I might have missed.
No, you've done a perfect job. Well done.
Okay,
brilliant. Thank you, Cheryl. And just for the other leads, we haven't got all your charters of detail in here, just because of the volume of slides. So, but let me know if in future it'd be helpful to have those in these sessions. Okay, thanks, education team. Right, Naomi and Joe, construction.
Thank you, Holly. Hi, everyone. Yes, so construction, so in terms of our team members, myself and Joe are on the call. Aurelie is our other co-lead. We have got additional team members, so my team from Amy, Jeff, who is also on the call, and Marco are now involved in the sector work, and Joe and Aurelie are looking to get additional people from their areas to join, and we also have expansion plans beyond our own organisation. In terms of charter signatories, the list of existing charter memberships is quite small, so that is absolutely a focus for us, but we have realised over the last year or so that actually there's a lot of work that needs to go into getting somebody to sign, particularly in large organisations where you're going up through a sort of chain of command and finding the right person who can actually sign. So we've been kind of putting in the groundwork with organisations and are hoping some of that comes to fruition. In terms of target prospects for charter signatory and greater engagement within the sector, from my perspective, I'm focusing on our sort of key providers, so Network Rail, National Highways, who my organisation, Amy, work really closely with, but they then have got connections with a huge number of other organisations. So it feels as though that would be really kind of key to get them on board. We've got some upcoming events and activities. So the Building the Future of Construction event in a couple of weeks' time, where there are a number of sessions focusing on skills. Yeah, I will be there and actively talking to anybody who will listen about digital skills, FutureDotNow. And then I had a really useful conversation with Holly recently, and we were talking about what we could do in terms of building digital skills requirements into our contracts, and really showing how important digital skills are to us as an organisation, and how we kind of expect organisations we work with to take a similar view and to have a similar kind of level of importance in terms of the digital skills of their own employees. I'm working with our vendor management team at Amy to progress that, but that would be kind of similar to the expectations that we put on suppliers in terms of cyber safety. So I've kind of got a template to work from there. But I'm really hoping that that will enable us to have that conversation with existing and new suppliers that we work with. In terms of support needed, I really liked the information that Cheryl had put on her slide, and I would say, yes, please, all of that applies to us. Yep. I'd focused more on the support in terms of bodies, which we're working on, but that's sort of collateral in terms of when we're out talking to people, having something that's really kind of a handy guide that we can refer to would be brilliant. Brilliant. Can I hand over to Jo, because I've spoken very much from my side of the sector, and Jo's got a different slant from her side.
Hi, thanks, Naomi. Yeah, so just a couple of things, and this is amazing, the fact that we're going to have toolkits and reports and everything else, because we have pledged to integrate AI literacy and EDS across all of our employability and skills programs. We are on framework with the King's Trust. We've gone out to, we work with different underrepresented groups and other local authorities, and I'm just pitching for a skills program for the Thames Freeport, as to which we will be having this layer of EDS and AI literacy within those. So amazing that that report's coming out, so that we can align all of that activity and do it well, do it properly. That also feeds into FDN and FutureDotNow and the work that Aurelie, Naomi and I are doing. Really will value the toolkits, so the working out how best to assess and measure that impact measurement. So I'm sure we can learn from the amazing work done by Cosmic in the Southwest. And then also the accreditation and digital badging piece will be amazing for these programs as well. Within the idea is, because we do both shoes and boots side of the industry, of the construction industry, so we can basically tailor the EDS and the AI literacy to those different uses, so the different uses of digital within those two sides of the sector. So really excited by all that toolkit and all that work, Holly. It's going to be amazing to be able to just integrate all of that learning as well. Second thing was, and apologies, I haven't had a chance to catch up with Naomi and Holly before this. I was up at Leeds last week at UK Reef, Big Built Environment, Big Built Environment Conference, 16,000 people from cities and local authorities all the way through to providers and suppliers. There's a massive focus on skills across the board, which was really good to see. And I was able to share the FutureDotNow mission with a round table of top organisations, from members of the Green Party to local authorities, developers, and other organisations driving social value within the employability and skills space. So I was able to share what FutureDotNow were doing. So I'm hoping from that group especially that we can get more of those charter signatories, or at least more people engaged. And the plan would be to think about a digital skills element for that big conference next year, so that we can get everybody engaged. Again, thank you to the education team, that A5 flyer. Don't know whether you'd be able to share that or not, but that would be amazing to use. And then there are a couple of different opportunities for positioning, Chris, that might be of interest. So with my Tech London Advocates education hat on, we're supporting the launch of the National AI Awareness Day, driven by Mark Martin, which I'm sure you must know about, or Liz, because I'm sure you know Mark Martin, but I don't know whether those paths have crossed. So it would be great to talk to you about getting that awareness out there and getting FDM within that, and doing something on the 4th of June. And that's also South by Southwest on 4th of June as well, which is another place to hit the tech sector. And then lastly is the TLA, Tech London Advocates Prop Tech Group, which I also co-lead. We are developing, or Linda Chandler, who's ex-Microsoft Smart Cities, is a digital placemaking playbook, which will be a guide to about applying digital infrastructure across city regeneration plans and master plans, but it needs a skills element, to which I and hopefully FutureDotNow will contribute to, because that will be going out across industry, from local authorities to major players and tier ones about how important digital infrastructure is, but more importantly, we need those digital skills to be able to keep moving on that. And I will be quiet now, but that's the update.
Thank you, Jo.
Thank you.
What we'll do is, just in the interim, I think we'll send you the placemat that we used at the summit, which at least gives you that as a handout and data you can take with you. We could do that with all the sector leads, but also, Jo, I think it'd be great to bring you in just to test with you how we do the toolkit development over the summer, just to make sure that as someone who's going to go and use it, is it going to give you what you need, and is there anything, and how we construct that and make sure it's really effective. So if you're up for that, I'll just loop you in at the right time.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Right then, so Mr. James Freed, who's in the office today, not on holiday. James, let me hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on the health and care sector. So obviously aiming for more charterships and memberships. Let me tell you a little bit about how we've structured. So they say a good model needs to be collectively all-encompassing, but have mutually discrete elements. And so for health and care, we've divided up all of health and care into 4 mutually discrete elements. So the first is NHS staff in post. The second is independent health and care, health staff in post. The third is social care, social worker staff in post. And then the fourth is the future workforce. And we've got leads for 3 of those 4 areas. And there's some work stood up, although no nominated lead for the 4th. We're also attracting others. So I think we're quite co-lead heavy, but necessarily so because of the way we've defined our work. We're also joined, you'll like this, Holly and Liz, we were joined by Cameron King. So he's basically joined our team as well. So Cameron, for those of it, we met him at the end of Sprint 1, the workshop at the end of Sprint 1, and got chatting. Cameron works in local authority land. So he works for Kingston Council, and works to commission adult social care education, so amongst other things. So we're spotting the sort of overlap in industries, and he's been inviting us along to his meetings, and we've been inviting him along to ours. So all of us went down to Edgbaston last week for the social care annual conference, where I was on a round table talking about digital skills and FutureDotNow and other things. So yeah, all good, really. Can I have the next slide, please?
Of course you can. Alison, there we go. This is the one. Yep.
Thank you. And just to quickly summarize where we are and what we're trying to do then. So we benefit from having over the last 6 months, it's been a noticeable, marked difference in sort of understanding and appreciation of the value of essential digital skills at work. So I mentioned it a couple of times, but we had this thing called the 10-year plan, which committed the NHS to having the most digitally advanced workforce in the world, actually, which is quite an ambition, but what it does mean is that there's definitely commitment there to support, and importantly from my perspective, resource work in this area. It's also likely to be a key part of the forthcoming 10-year workforce plan, which is a specific workforce spin-off of the 10-year plan, somewhat delayed slightly because our Secretary of State, as you might have noticed, has swerved left. So I didn't mean that in the political sense. I just mean that in that he's resigned as the Secretary of State for Health and Care, which just means things are slightly delayed. But I'm not expecting any change in tack or direction, I might add. Our big thing this sprint is we're hoping to spend some money. So we're hoping to get a contract out to support some of the instantiation of FutureDotNow principles and products within the NHS. And to that end, we've got a special interest group of 700 people, educators from across the NHS, who turn up regularly to bi-monthly meetings of that special interest group. We get about 120, 130 people showing up at each of those meetings. And we've pulled together a steering group of about 20. So these are people who are working in health and care organisations, some of whom have signed up to the charter, some of whom who haven't, to help us make sure that we're spending the money in the way that they're best able to use as employer organisations. And they've self-formed into 3 subgroups. These are working groups to help apply the knowledge that we collectively have as a community across all industries in the UK as FutureDotNow. That's the we. And the 3 groups are, first one on delivery, so which specific interventions are the things that are going to make the most difference. So this is drawing on things like the Learning That Clicks report that demonstrated that digital champions interventions have got the best evidence base around them when trying to develop essential digital skills. The second is on build and curate. So there's been a huge amount of collective activity around pulling together in particular free third-party assets around education and trying to categorise them and deliver them appropriately. What we found from our research in the NHS is that every employer organisation is doing that themselves. And there's very little overlap, believe it or not. I mean, I know there are literally tens of thousands of assets out there, but what it demonstrates to me is that in the NHS, which could conceivably work as a single organisation, we're wasting a lot of effort in duplicating activity. If I was to roll that up, FutureDotNow is the equivalent of that for the whole of the working sector in the UK. And if we can pool our collective resources, it doesn't mean it means that we don't have to individually spend all that time on curating and then maintaining those assets. The final working group is on measurement and outcomes. So this is about how we apply the essential digital skills framework, but alongside other frameworks that reference digital skills relevant for the health and care sector. So, how you support doctors to use telemedicine technologies, or how you support NHS staff to use electronic patient records, things that are in addition to what the essential digital skills framework really gets into the detail for. So quite a lot of work. Social care is probably second in our 4 areas. So Jane Brightman's doing a huge amount of work with Skills for Care. She's been working in this area for years and years, and we swap assets left, right, and centre. Independent sector, I would say, is coming up third. We're finding it a little bit tricky to get buy-in in the independent sector, and I think there is not the same sort of peer-to-peer sharing culture. I think the other issue is we're seeing a little bit of resistance to signing up to a charter in that sector, whereas we've not seen it quite as much in the NHS. And the future workforce piece is coming along quite well. We've got a medical education reform strategy and a nursing and AHP, allied healthcare professional education reform strategy, both of which are looking to the essential digital skills framework as their main language for things they want to test and include into undergraduate curricula. So it's overlapping with the education world there a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So all in all, it feels like this year's going to be a biggie for us. We're very much using the FutureDotNow charter as the thing we're wheeling behind. So a decision we had to make early on is right, what are we getting people to buy into? Are we going to try and create something separate for the NHS as a one for creating something different for it? So we had to make a decision about whether we're going to create something different, and we came to the conclusion that if we did that, it would be damaging to the FutureDotNow charter, and it would be damaging to us. So why do we do that? So we pushed the FutureDotNow charter as the only charter in health and care we encourage organisations to get behind in this space. So there you go. That's my update. Thank you very much.
Thanks for not taking the day off, James.
It's all right.
Very good. All righty. Thomas, I think you're covering, aren't you, on behalf of yourself and Laura and Jonathan?
I am indeed. Hello, everybody. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Thomas Peterman. I work in DSIT. And actually, whilst Laura Gregory, who's I think flagged on this slide also, and I have both been animating this to date, I think the substantive update we can give is that there is now a home for action on this in government. So as Liz and Holly are very aware, there are a few structural barriers that have prevented us from maybe getting quite the level of take-up across central government departments, at least, as we would have hoped previously. But a few things have been happening over the last few months in government. So some of you will have clocked that earlier in the year there was a national school for government announced, which essentially is a bit of a centralisation of all things learning and growth and talent across government departments. And what that means is it's much more feasible for us to set standards, to source learning in different ways, to cascade and get government departments to work to sort of to new standards and new initiatives. Jonathan Foreman, as I don't think has necessarily been fully introduced to this group, but he's the deputy director responsible now for growing the learning potential of all of our civil servants, and a core part of his brief is upskilling all of those civil servants, not the expert ones, but I suppose the users, to become much more digitally literate. So there's a handful of things that John's now able to promote. But a couple of other things to flag. There is, as you might imagine, lots of momentum in government around all things AI. And I think you'll probably see when we get to London Tech Week, more announcements coming out about both how the government wants to leverage AI for the greater use of the economy, but also wants to use AI and digital literacy as a vehicle to uplift the capability of the civil service. The other thing, though, that's come out, and I apologize that I'm only maybe scratched the surface of some of these updates. They are because now they're firmly John's updates, but he's not able to be here today. The other thing that I'd flag that has come out in the conversations that Holly and John and I have been having is that the brief that we have internally at the moment is firmly focused on central government departments. And I'm conscious there's a handful of colleagues on the call today that haven't come from central government, but they've come from other parts of the public sector, mostly in some cases local government. Well, I think what we've identified is we don't have a leadership or a really clear work stream around local government. And whilst it's definitely, well, I'm definitely not a suitable candidate to lead that work stream, I will absolutely put my hand up for coordinating, bringing together a group of people who are involved from a local government perspective and want to be represented in this. Interestingly, we've already had sort of like strong demand signals from the London boroughs through organisations like LOTTE, which is the London, somebody else want to call the group, remember what the acronym stands for, but London Office for Technology and Innovation. There you go. I knew it was there somewhere. So they're one of the kind of coordinating bodies amongst London boroughs, at least, and we know there's a strong appetite to drive digital inclusion across their community. So off the back of this, I'm be really keen to sort of engage those from other local government organisations, and we can collectively figure out how we might manage action in local government as opposed to central government, which I think is what most of these updates speak to at the moment.
That'd be great, Tom. We could also share with you the list of, our current coalition from local government.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Very good. Okie dokie. Right, I'm conscious of time. I'm going to just move us into the enablers piece. So the themes at the start that Liz talked about was engaging more business, and it's fantastic to hear all of the different ways that the sector teams are reaching out into their networks, and also the different approaches that work, because we know the sectors are different. So actually what works in the sector is going to differ, and it's good to get visibility of what is actually having an impact. The second priority was around actually making action easier and making sure that businesses, once you get that awareness and commitment, actually how do you help businesses to then tackle the skills gap and make that as easy as possible? So we have two work streams within this sprint. The first one is around benchmarking. So many of you will now have become familiar with this 5-step maturity matrix, which is a maturity framework, which is the stages a business goes through from first identifying their starting point, getting a bit of support and building the business case, designing and implementing a program, and then scaling that over time. What we want to do is operationalize the benchmarking tools so that we can encourage organizations to use that to do a bit of self-reflection on their own maturity, but also importantly so that we can gather data that could grow over time to give us a sector measure of maturity in terms of where businesses are today. The second project that sits under this area is around the tools and solutions then that map to each of those stages. And one of the key things that will sit with Tega when she joins us is actually curating, starting to look across those resources, reports, the insight that we've got already, and start to map them against the different stages, because then once we know what we've got, we can start to identify what else we need and start to really build the value proposition for organisations as they come on board as members. We're also not forgetting the fact that there are still systemic issues that make this tricky. We did a lot of work on that over the last 2 years, and that's what's driven the work around the social value report, the economic impact, the updating of the framework itself. And we've got 2 areas that will run this sprint. The first one, and I'll just give you a couple of words on the first one, and then Matt, I will come to you about the framework. So the first one is around accreditation and badging. And with thanks to Paddy and Hannah at City and Guilds, and also the team at Navigator, we were able to bring in, through partnership with Cosmic as well, bring in badging into the employability project that we ran earlier this year, which meant that we were able to award participants with badges, which was actually particularly motivating for people who perhaps didn't see themselves as successful in education, and this gave them something that was tangible and also allowed them to then have a conversation with future employers around specific skill sets. So we want to build on that, and we also want to work with Josh over at UFI and also Polly, who I know is on the call from Idea Foundation, and bring together of various strands of work around badging and work out what is the actual issue we're trying to solve, what are the options we've got, and how do we turn this into a scale model that actually the coalition, but also probably wider, can then make use of. So this sprint will be all about scoping out this piece of work. And then the second one is the framework. So why don't I hand over to you, Matt, to give us an update on our framework piece, Future Fit framework.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I guess in the interest of time, we can skip to the next slide. So this is a piece of work that I've had the pleasure of leading with Holly and with Kerry. So to give you a little bit of a whistle stop tour, we're really excited that the framework now sits under DSIT stewardship, and we're keeping a watching brief on this, ready to lean in and support wherever we can help. Kerry has been leading a really interesting piece of work exploring the reading age of the framework. So if this is going to be used and have maximum effect in things like employability programs, we want to make sure that the use of language is right for target audiences. We are going to continue and keep live this piece around the ecosystem. It's always really encouraging seeing different bodies within the skills ecosystem come together by virtue of FutureDotNow and meet each other in ways that they might not have done otherwise. So we have a little bit of a responsibility here to keep some handles around that. I'll spend a moment or two talking about a test and learn project that we're launching for this sprint. So we want to get the message out there, and we want to get the message out there at a scale that matches the enthusiasm and the ambition of FutureDotNow. And where we've landed is to use the recently announced Level 4 AI and Automation Practitioner Apprenticeship, as well as the Level 5 apprenticeship units, those small 30-hour pockets of executive education, which I've written over the last 6 months or so, but use those to try and mobilize some of this key messaging of FutureDotNow. So we've got a really healthy, addressable market of training providers, around 95 for the Level 4 standard and over 80 for these apprenticeship units. And what we're going to explore across this sprint is, can we develop some assets, some teaching materials, some key messaging that maps to the knowledge, skills, and behaviors statements of those standards? And this is with two key audiences in mind. It's future leaders, where irrespective of their current level of AI maturity and AI adoption, we want those FutureDotNow values and messages to be front and foremost. And also through the Level 4 for the technical professionals, the people who will be developing AI, developing data-driven systems, and we want them to do that empathetically and with those challenges around essential digital skills in mind. So I'll maybe turn back to you, Holly, but if anyone on the call is interested in getting involved, please do reach out. It's great to see Paddy and Jeff on the call who are already involved in the sprint.
Super, thank you, Matt. Great update, and really quite an exciting opportunity to inject that into those two audiences. Okie dokie, so that's all of our updates. That leaves us with just a reminder on some practicalities around the sprint. So in terms of the key dates this sprint, 10 weeks. We've had our kickoff call today. The next time we come together as a community is the 23rd of June. That's another online call. That's an hour and a half. And that's an opportunity for all of the teams and the live projects to provide an update on progress. Also to spot any interconnections that we might not have spotted before, but also an opportunity to ask for any support based on the work that you've then done since now. And then we come together for the third time in this sprint, which is at the end of sprint workshop. That's an in-person event. This time it will be hosted at Tech UK, with thanks to Nimi for hosting us there. And that's the afternoon of the 28th of July. In terms of our co-leads, now the priorities are really about making sure you're crystal clear on your priorities for this sprint, looking across your team in terms of roles, responsibilities. Is there anyone missing? You know, actually, we've already heard that there are some people who are looking out and looking to grow their team. Time whizzes by, so get those meetings in the diary when you can, and then become ready to share your updates when we come back together 23rd of June. If you're not on a team and you felt inspired by some of these updates, we'd love you to join a team. I know there's some new faces on here. There'll be a link going into the chat where you can register your interest for the delivery plan, and then we can help connect you into the right place based on your expertise. That just leaves me to hand over to Liz for the last few minutes in terms of our wider campaigning action.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just remind everybody that whilst we've got the sprint work going, and that obviously has a certain cadence, we've also got constant activity from our campaigning work in terms of keeping that attention on the essential digital skills gap. So obviously the summit was a major moment in our calendar, a real high point that brought a lot of people together. We also followed on with that straight down to meet with Dan Aldridge MP on his home turf, Julie and I, to share the employability work, and we're now working with him to co-create a plan to socialise the learnings from that with policymakers. And I can't tell you how helpful it is to have an MP helping you with that. We, at Dan's suggestion, we have submitted evidence to the Business and Trade Select Committee on AI and the future of work. If you'd like to read that, I sent it out to quite a few people, but if you'd like to read that and you haven't read it, it's available on our website from the news pages. Ofcom are, off the back of the summit, really interested in how we work together and how we bring together the work on media literacy and essential digital skills where it's relevant. So I'm really delighted that we're going to be working with Claire and the team there. Obviously, Matt's already talked about the DSET ownership of the essential digital skills framework, keeping attention on the fact that we obviously need that to also be a future fit framework. So we don't just want them to own what's there, we want them to get it updated. Great news in terms of Skills England. Matt and I have done a really conscious kind of pincer movement on some of this. They are working on a standard skills classification at the moment, and that is going to include the essential digital skills to work. So that's really great in terms of continuing to embed essential digital skills into what's already there. Same is true in terms of DFE. They've had their skills standards consultation out live, and Holly has been working with CIPD, and we ran a webinar with them, you know, taking our message directly into the HR community. There's a load of things on the bottom line there just in terms of what's coming. You know about the report, you know, we're going to get, I've mentioned in the chat, we've got a briefing for anybody who's at London Tech Week, so you can very easily bring some essential digital skills messaging in. That will be out this week. We are, as I say, doing the work on the employability learning. We've been invited to Chatham House for a closed round table on AI, which is taking place in July. That's great. We're inputting through the Digital Skills Council to the Digital Jobs Plan. And we're also exploring a potential white paper on whole workforce upskilling, because currently government's policy work doesn't explicitly include that. So that's something that we're looking at. And Chris wouldn't allow me to not talk about this without saying, and we're going to have a refreshed website this quarter, which is very, very exciting. And Chris is doing a huge amount of work on that at the moment. And that the reason why that's important is we want to make our content so much more accessible than it has been to date to others. So people can just go onto the website, see the delivery plan, be able to engage with it and go, oh, hang on, that sounds interesting. How can I get involved? What can I do? So making it much easier so it doesn't feel like a closed shop in any way, because it isn't a closed shop. So that's it in terms of campaigning, in terms of our priorities. So if you've got any questions, we have got a whole 2 minutes. But I was just going to say, if you've not yet been involved, just drop us a line at hello@future.now, and we'll join you up with a work stream if that's what you'd like, or if it's something else you'd like to discuss, then we'd love to hear from you. And of course, any feedback on, you know, obviously people when they come in fresh see things differently. So if there's something kind of that you're hearing going, why aren't they? Why couldn't they? Could just. We love those conversations. You've got the dates for the next couple of meetings. I hope it's a really good sprint for everybody. And I just ask that don't forget to download and share your Sprint 1 badges. We want to kind of create that FOMO for those people that aren't already involved. So that's really great. And as Holly said, when we send the slides out, in the back of the pack, you'll see those summary slides for each of the sectors that are not yet stood up, and we'd really welcome any content or thoughts you've got on any of those as well. I think that's it. Any 1 minute, loads of action going on the chat. Anything else anybody wants to say? Okay, have a fabulous sprint. And hopefully it will be hot stuff at the end as a result of our progress, as opposed to just the temperature outside.